I think if we just look at this episode in terms of pure shattering realizations, this episode will be hard to top for a while because from the Milim backstory, which most likely somehow ties together with the dragon, Veldora, that we met in Season 1, Episode 1, to the realization that Rimuru is about to kill an army of 20,000 in order to become Demon Lord himself, they bring up a resurrection angle that doesn't feel half-assed. It actually has logic on how souls would be trapped in due to all the barriers kind of keeping them intact, and how it kind of already happened by the looks of it from their own history. They had so many things happening, and you could actually argue that this episode was casual slice-of-life slime adventures as they plot genocide. Holy shit. Mulan stuff with Yum and how Rimuru wants to make him king after destroying their army because he doesn't blame the civilians because what did they do? They live in a city, why should he burn them? But the army, on the other hand, hey, I need to kill 10,000 in order to reach the threshold. Well, an army's walking my doorstep. I do wonder, though, in that situation, because if he needs, say, 10,000, maybe it's a bit more, maybe it's a bit less, right? Say there's 12,000 he actually needs. I don't imagine he's going to do one attack and the army's going to be destroyed, right? It's probably going to take a pretty big battle. But I'm kind of curious, would he want to actually destroy the whole army, or would he want some of it to survive so the kingdom isn't left unguarded? Because while he is powerful, and yes, he can teleport, can he really defend all of his kingdoms at the same time? Probably not. So I'm curious if he's going to go the route of just actually destroying this entire army, or if he's going to go the route of he's definitely going to destroy most of it, but the rest who are all fearful, hey, if you don't want this to happen to you, you're going to make sure you follow your new king, else you're going to get the same treatment as I just shown the rest of your comrades. If you would have asked me last week if a resurrection angle would be good in Slime, I would have said hell no. But after seeing how they prepared it and executed it here, very similar to a lot of what would generally be seen as cliches in Season 1, Slime really takes it and forms it into a new entity to make it not feel cliche, but rather a unique addition to this world. I think even before you learn about the whole Souls angle, when they brought up the question of resurrection and the great sage is like, hey, there's no magic that I know of that can do this, I was like, okay, they're clearly going to have some sort of ability. I just didn't expect to get any confirmation in this episode. I thought it would pop up at the end of the first core, maybe. So the idea that there is this fairy tale, so to speak, right? And characters that we know of, there's actually more to meet Hsieh to them, and then how it ties into Milim in just that tragic backstory, unless that wasn't Milim, but I mean, that has to be. There's no way you make the character design like that unless it is Milim herself. And to see the idea of it and how it's pretty much just tragically horrible, that you brought something back, but it's basically a husk of its former self. You could call it a zombie, all things considered. So I was like, okay, then what's the point of this? Because there's no way Rimuru is going to be so broken and grieved that he's going to have zombie Shion walking around. You don't kill Best Girl to just bring Best Girl back as a husk of her former self. But then, when you really take a step back, pretty much as they were explaining it, I had this kind of like light bulb moment. I was like, wait a second. Are they actually going to use something so clever that it had to be the perfect storm? That because the humans did these barriers, the reason why there is even a 3% chance that this could work is because of the bullshit you just did to them. I actually thought that was a brilliant moment to say, yeah, you have to have anime convenience, but at the same time, there's no reason why this shouldn't work. And the idea that he put up a third barrier just in case the other two go down, you know, that barrier will stay up as long as Rimuru is active, I think is a great way to give them hope without guaranteeing it. Though I will say at this point, while I'm not sure if the entire village will be saved, I think Shion herself probably will, and the fact that they're not going the direction that I think would anger a lot of people, that Rimuru doesn't do anything bad. He doesn't hurt anyone, he just revives everyone. That would probably make a lot of people mad. Instead, they're saying, you know, Rimuru's logical about things. Someone like Mulan, there's no reason to necessarily punish her. She's literally being controlled by Clayman. Her heart was in control. Do you really blame someone with a gun pointed to their head, or do you blame those who are willingly slashing down innocent kids and just great people like Shion because they enjoy the thrill of the hunt? For Rimuru, when he initially killed her, I was like, you know what? I understand the rage, but I personally disagreed with it. But I can't really blame him given the circumstances. And to see that he actually made a fake heart in that moment, I thought was a great way to say, you did some bad things, but given the circumstances, any of his current allies could have easily been put in that same position, and there's nothing about her personality that really screams scumbag, more of I had a gun to my head and I fell in love with this person that I was supposed to hate. Sure, if that's all we got in this episode, there's no confirmation of war, I think a lot of people might be mad. I saw a lot of people saying Nguyen deserved a lot of death, but I never personally felt that way. I was just more of like, you're definitely responsible, but you were definitely brainwashed, if not controlled. And getting more clarification on what was happening with her, I thought was a great way to really symbolize why things were occurring this way. But the idea that you already summoned your allies, hopefully your allies are coming. And while, yes, Rimuru is powerful, can he one-shot 20,000 soldiers? That's going to be the big what if, right? So the idea that he's going to use this, and I was really worried that he was just going to, like, launch a nuke. Just first thing, he's like, okay, they attacked my city, I'm going to attack theirs. That doesn't make sense for his character, even though he definitely is grief and he's just, like, so pissed off. The idea of attacking the army makes a lot more sense. And sure, maybe the army doesn't work out and he's pressed on time. Then he launches an attack on the city. That could make sense for his character arc, but not just jumping to that right away. And the idea that he's planning a lot more strategy for the long term of how to deal with humans in the future. Well, let's start placing people in leadership positions that I actually trust for once, so if even more shitty people come after me, I have more allies that I can call upon. I think you definitely want to have that kingdom on your side. If the dwarf kingdom doesn't actually meet up their end of the bargain, you're probably going to have to launch your own attack, right? So it was very interesting to see all that, and something I also saw last week was that Rimuru wasn't mad enough for some people, but I loved how they portrayed his anger, and I equally loved it in this episode. Sure, he wasn't casting fireballs, he wasn't smashing the ground, he wasn't lashing out too much. The worst type of anger is those that are calm, and there's only slight signs. You're clenching your fists, or in this case, he puts on a mask in order to suppress that pressure, and the mask cracks because of how mad he is, and the fact that he's clearly crying under the mask. He is grief-ridden, and there's only one moment where you truly get a sense of, oh shit, he's about to just lose it, and he says, please leave me alone for a while. This is a man who's incredibly distraught, and I also saw some people say they wanted to see this death, and I'm surprised. I didn't get this death spoiled for me. I'm actually shocked. I did not get this. I knew something big was going to happen, but I just kind of assumed. I mean, the kingdom's kind of big. I just assumed that she wasn't a part of the group right now. She was doing something else. And then when you get to the nurse's office, basically, and you see one of them, I was like, okay, she's clearly fine. She's not dead. And where's Shion, right? So the idea that they revealed it this way, it's much better having it in this episode so you have the entire episode to reflect on it rather than just ending in a cliffhanger, being mad, and then walking into this episode not having that same type of grief carry on for half of the episode. Because at that point, when you reach the halfway point, you realize there is a potential of bringing her back, and there's no way you give it a 3% chance if you probably aren't going to bring her back. I feel like if you're writing this situation and you don't want the viewers to get their hopes up, you would go like 0.00001% chance or something. So I really liked how they handled the grief and the anger, and while it may not be everyone's cup of tea, if you enjoyed last week's portrayal of like rage and grief, I think this episode just mirrors that one for one, and if you didn't like it, then this might be a bit of a letdown. But for me, this was like the perfect type of slime episode, where you think about the characters we met back in season 1, from Milim to the dragon. You think of this fairy tale and how it perfectly works to hopefully revive this village, while also punishing those who deserve punishment. It hits all the right notes while also rewarding and giving second chances where they're due, in the case of someone whose literal heart was kind of like at a shotgun's barrel, saying, do what I want, otherwise you will die, sort of a thing. And most people would rather have some life than no life at all, right? So it's very interesting seeing how they kind of hit all the notes they needed to, and with 4 episodes left to go of the first core, as then we'll wait for core 2 in summer, this was a great episode. I really enjoyed it. Honestly, I would say probably this was one of my most anticipated episodes of the week, and everyone knows how great this season of anime has been, but this episode really delivered on the rage, on the grief, on the hope, but also showing that hopefully bad people will get what's coming to them, and I'm really excited to see more. I'd love to know everyone's thoughts and feelings on this week's episode of Slime. What did you think, and where do you think it might go with episode 9 next week? If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, share your support, and hit that subscribe button if you happen to be around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.